Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Joe Morgan, owner of Meliora Consultancy and non-exec advisor at Tech on Toast. Coming up on today's show, Joe gets passionate about cranes.
That's my crane!
Phil finally admits what we all know. For anybody who's listening to this thinking, Phil doesn't know what he's talking about, I know I don't know what I'm talking about. And Joe triggers us with this statement.
So there was one time when I double booked the entire hotel.
All that and so much more as we chat through Joe's epic career journey so far. Joe brings a mix of real talk and relentless optimism, and her career is a showcase of what can happen when you say yes, remain curious, and figure it all out as you go. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Joe Morgan.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you, yeah.
Good. Where do we find ourselves today?
So we are in the Other House, South Kensington, which is a residence club. So it's a hotel meets service department meets private members club. And we're actually in one of the private spaces called The Den, which is really cool because it's got a big screen. We can screen sports events and all kinds of things here. So it's a really good space.
I can attest to that. It's very cool. Very cool. Sounds are good in here as well.
Yes.
It seems like the acoustics are good for recording a podcast.
Oh, exactly why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just tell the world a little bit about what you currently do.
So I run my own hospitality consultancy, Meliora Consultancy. Meliora basically stands for the pursuit of the better. It's Latin.
Oh, very good.
So I'm very much about trying to help any organisation, but primarily hospitality, in standards, processes, operations, training. Really, you name it, I'm the person that goes, yeah, I'm sure I can do that. And then we'll work out how after if I don't know. But I'm currently working with The Other House, which is where we are today, supporting them as their group operations director. So South Kensington's been open for a couple of years, and then Covent Garden opens within the next few months. It's really exciting.
Fantastic, yeah. And what a really interesting brand as well, because I remember when, it's Naomi, isn't it, who's
yes.
the founder, I remember seeing her give a talk about what The Other House was going to be and all of that, and definitely did well at creating that buzz around, this is not going to be your kind of run-of-the-mill stock standard hospitality brand.
No, not at all. It really is about creating spaces for people to feel at home, but they're in control of their experience. So we have people that have lived here for 3 years, and then we have people that just come to London for the weekend. We have people that stay overnight on business. So it's a huge mix of people, and what we're trying to provide is the choice for people. So if you literally want to check in on the app, use the app, go to your flat, never see anybody, come down, check out, happy days. If you then want to really engage and have breakfast and use the pool, and if you stay with us, you have access to the private members club. So use all the facilities and really get involved with what's going on. We have activities and entertainment. You absolutely can. So it's as much or as little as you want to engage as a guest and make that experience your own experience. And then, like I said, we also have people that just live with us because they love it. So.
Yeah. So basically, it is somebody else's other house.
Absolutely. Your house for as long as you're in town. A day, a week, a month, a year.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, in quite opulent surroundings as well. It's beautifully finished, beautifully designed. And I think you've had a part in that, I believe, as well. It's certainly what we're talking about with regards to the future travel of the organisation.
Yeah, so from an operational perspective, not so much here, because when I first started working with The Other House, I was more on the HR side of things, but certainly for Covent Garden and then future openings, helping with the operational design of things. So actually, that looks amazing. How will that work in practice, and where would we put the coffee machine in, versus the glass washer? What is the furniture like? 'Cause it might look wonderful, but actually, can we move it? Is it flexible? Does it allow for us to change the space from a restaurant to an event space, and those types of things? And that's great to be able to give that operational guidance and kind of experience to we have an amazing interior design team, and the vision's always led by Naomi. So what does something look like, but then how can we make sure that it's operationally efficient as well?
Yeah, it's quite important.
Yeah, it is. And you learn as you go, because there are some wonderful things here. We never foresaw the restaurant here being an event space. So we've got these beautiful marble tables. It's absolutely gorgeous. Great place to eat and have brunch. But actually, when we want to turn it into a party venue, which is a brilliant party venue at night, suddenly we have very heavy tables to move. Now we've been creative and we've built they're almost like little skateboards that we lift the tables on and wheel them out. But it's actually okay. So next time we've got a really cool restaurant space that we can turn into event space. How do we make the tables more movable so that you can have the best of both? So it's learning those things as you go along as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where the win is, right? Because I think you, especially when you're, I suppose, creating a new brand into the marketplace, you want it to have its points of difference from a design perspective in what is a very competitive marketplace in London, right?
Yeah.
And let's be honest. So you need to have, it has to be visually attractive to want to, be in the space. But equally then, some of the times you can design something and it's not until you get operational where you realise, actually, that maybe didn't quite work. And we need to rethink the design around that just so that we've got a better flow of service, a better guest experience, whatever the reason for changing it is. And sometimes you can't figure that out until you're up and running.
Absolutely true. And we always try and listen to what our residents tell us, particularly people who live with us, because they use the space in all kinds of different ways. They use it for leisure, they use it for business, they use it for membership. And then they'll say, well, what about this? Or why is that like that? Or could we try this? And you kind of go, that's a really good idea. But because they're using it all the time, it's then understanding, okay, next time this is where we need to invest or this is what we might need to change. So we had the private members club down here, all the different doors had like locks on them. So if you were a member, you could get in all the places. But actually what the members wanted was just to walk into one space and then we have access to everything. So we literally built a wall. So that first set of doors that you came through, we built that in like retrospectively so that you kind of then just walk into member space and then you can free flow around the space. So it's thinking, okay, yeah, actually that makes sense from whoever's using the space. Let's adapt and see what we can do.
Yeah.
So,
well, and taking the live feedback from the people who are using it day in, day out.
Absolutely.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Right. Well, sure, we'll come back to the other house at some point in the conversation. But what I'd really love to do is take you all the way back to the beginning of your career. A long career, and let's not say long. No, that's unfair. You've had a while in
wee while.
Hospitality.
Few
But yeah,
decades.
take us back to the beginning. How did you get into the industry in the first place?
I think my first job in hospitality, I was about 15, and my friend's mum worked for contract caterers, and basically she just needed hands. And it was like, I think we got paid like £2.50 or £3 an hour.
Oh, yes, I was that generation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in the 90s. And she taught us how to silver serve in her kitchen with silver flats and the spoon and fork. And we were silver serving peas and butter, frozen peas and butter patties and all sorts. But she taught us how to do it. So then we were in our little like black skirts and white shirts, feeling ever so smart. And I ended up to my elbows in kind of greasy water in a dustbin in the back of a marquee washing dishes. Because it was marquee events.
That sounds delightful.
It was absolutely hideous. So that was my first kind of foray into hospitality.
And you were hooked after
that. And I never
that.
looked back. Yeah, so literally, I did all kinds of bits of contract catering. I worked in a pizza shop. And then I wanted to study law. And then my teacher said, I think you'd be great in a courtroom, but the actual studying prior to that is not going to be, 6 years of studying is probably not going to be you. And I was like, yeah, you've got a point. And she suggested hospitality. And I thought, well, I actually quite enjoyed that. So I did a hotel catering business management degree at Sheffield Hallam. And with that, went out and worked in America, went out and worked in France, and got a position on the Marriott graduate scheme when I came out of that and did 6 years with Marriott. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sheffield Hallam was on my list.
Oh, really?
I went to Glasgow Uni in the end, but that was in a time when I did not have a clue what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to Sheffield Hallam to learn how to play rugby league.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a great reason to go to university, isn't it?
Cracking reason.
Yeah. But anyway, I ended up going to Glasgow, and the rest is history from my perspective. That's not why we're here anyway. But so when did you kind of start to think to yourself, because you study it as one thing, the practical reality of the day-to-day is something very different. Was it when you entered into the Marriott graduate scheme that you thought, yes, I'm in now?
No, I think it was before then. So, like I said, I'd done lots of bits and pieces of jobs, and I'd done my first year at uni, and TGI Fridays, which were big then, it was the 90s.
What a brand though.
In its heyday, oh my God. And
yeah.
they were opening in Leeds, and they literally just opened, and I joined into the opening team like a few weeks after opening. I knew someone that worked there. And the first question I was asked was in my interview, are you mad? And I was like, pardon? And he was like, are you mad? And I went, I'm thinking, what do I say here? So I went, yeah. And he went, that's good, because you need to be mad, because you don't get any weekends off, any bank holidays off, forget your life. this is it now.
Nice.
And
Sold.
I should have run screaming from the building, and I thought,
Yeah,
that sounds like great fun.
Yeah.
And they were paying, at the time, I remember they were paying quite well. And I started as a KP, and oh my God, it was tough. I was on the dish. I mean, on dish on a Saturday night was mental. And invariably, quite often, I was the only female in the kitchen as well. And I just loved it. It was hard work. It was crazy and chaotic, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. And then I got to go and work out in America after my second year at uni, and that experience then really helped me. So yeah, I think it was around then, and then there was so much competition for the graduate places in different hotel companies. And when I was in America, my friend had got a job at the end of the season with Marriott, and I'd gone to see her before I flew home. And I can't even remember which Marriott it was, but I remember looking at this hotel going, wow, this is something. And she was telling me all this stuff, and I remember thinking, that's the graduate scheme I'm going to go for. And I did, and I was lucky I got it.
But I think that even to this day, their reputation as a grad scheme is about as good as it gets.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the training we got, it was tough. It was really hard work, but the training we got was excellent. Like, it was super. I couldn't fault it. You know, it really did set you up, and you really did then know, is this for me or it isn't for me? Because it was grueling. But I mean, I came out. So I did a year in the Midlands, and then I helped because they just bought the Swallow estate, because it was all part of Whitbread Hotel Company, had the Marriott franchise at the time, and I helped with, on the BAM team, become a Marriott. BAM.
Right.
Yeah, very American.
Yeah.
And literally it was go into a Swallow hotel and indoctrinate all the people in what Marriott is and get them to forget what Swallow is. And that's what we did. And I loved it. I was like, because I'd had all this amazing training and all this development. And so I went to Bristol for like a month and worked in what is now the Bristol Marriott Royal. I think it still is. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. And then through that, I got offered a front of house manager's job kind of down in Milton Keynes. So I took that because that was a promotion. And then just kind of worked my way up. And then I was the youngest female general manager in the UK at the time.
Right.
I worked up to GM. The GM I had at the time, she got promoted and they hadn't recruited anyone. And they were like, well, you do it. I was like, yes, please. So I did that for about 4 or 5 months and then went to take a brand role at head office, literally going around and supporting the hotels with all their brand standards.
Right. What's all of this in 6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's quite a lot.
It was a lot. It really was a lot. And like I said, it was good training. I worked with some amazing people as well. I was very lucky to work with some just really smart, clever, experienced people. So
yeah.
it was a good time.
That's what they say, isn't it? That people stay for the people they work with.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they say that. I've just made that up. But it sounds like it should make sense.
I mean, I wouldn't have left it. The franchise went back to Marriott International, and because they obviously had a huge international central support, they condensed the central support they had in the UK because it was one specific region, and they had a whole EMEA regional support. So they made loads of the head office people redundant, and I was made redundant at the time. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I'd have ever left.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I think had that not happened, I certainly, it would have been something different to make me leave there. But then I got to do loads of other different stuff, so that was cool as well.
Yes, which we'll come on to now. Yeah, so 6 years with Marriott. How old were you when you got the GM role?
27.
27. Okay, so there's a few people I've had on the show who've always set this objective to be a GM by the 30.
30. Yeah, I had the exact same one.
From.
I have no idea. It was something that they probably beat into us at hotel school, is that, you've made it if you're a GM by the time you're 30. I absolutely had that goal. So when I could actually go, oh, I am the GM now, even just for a short while, I'll take that.
Yep.
And then it was really funny because when I left Marriott, and I went to work for a company called Paramount, and I was going as their training manager. And again, they wanted someone to like build up all their brand standards. And I still am, a total anorak with things like that. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great job. I'm going to go do that and take all this kind of 6 years of knowledge from another company with me, not realizing that just the way one company does something is not the way everyone does something. Yeah. And they did a psychometric on me, and the HR director at the time was like, you sure don't want to be a GM? I was like, why? Is it because you have the perfect profile to be a GM? I'm like, that's because I've been trained to be a GM for God knows how many years now, probably the best part of a decade. But actually, I don't want to do that at the moment. I want to do this. So, yeah.
Well, the very good point you raised, though, around like the difference in brands. I mean, we've just spoken about how excellent Marriott are at a lot of things when it comes to that, but also you can get institutionalized, right? In terms of there is only one way to do it, and that is the Marriott way, and it would be the same if you're coming out of Hilton, the same if you're coming out of another big brand, whatever. But so in actual fact, and you're still, quite young in your career, really, in the grand scheme of things, what a great opportunity to go and learn a different way.
It was. Paramount at the time they just split out. They were part of Q Hotels, and then they kind of split off. So Q Hotels went their way and Paramount went their way. And I joined the Paramount group, and then they were buying hotels. So they were buying independent properties and kind of bringing them into the brand. So they really needed like a level of consistent service and working with the marketing team on branding. And so it was really good. And then a few people from Marriott, because obviously they changed all the head office at Marriott, a few people then joined that I knew. So suddenly it was like, oh, actually, we all speak the same language. So how do we translate this into something that people will understand? So that was really good. And then the Spanish company Barcelo basically put their franchise into the Paramount Hotels. So all the Paramount Hotels at the time were rebranded as Barcelo Hotels. So I got to be part of all of that. And we were working really closely with the team in Spain. We were working out in Spain. We did a whole GM's conference in Spain, which was awesome. We took all the UK GMs to Mallorca and did this huge conference all around the values and stuff. So myself and the HR director at the time were delivering all of that. And that was brilliant. It was a great experience. I think the problem was that Barcelo were used to operating in Europe and in Spain and in Central America, and very, very successfully. But applying that resort knowledge to the UK market, it just didn't always work. And then not having a flagship hotel in London where you could really like boost your brand, I don't think it was very successful for them in the end. I left because someone left and then took me with them. So it was one of those ones like, right, I've gone here now, do you come with me? And it was like, oh, actually, yeah, I've done this rebranding. It's really great, but I want to try something different. So then I went and worked for Thistle. And I was with Thistle for 6 years. Yeah, 6 years with
So you're a 6-year person then.
Yeah, I think I tend to stay like, up to that point, 6 years. Anywhere between 4 and 6 years. I always like grew within the company rather than, I've never been the person to really look outside. The only time I've ever really moved is either I've been forced to or someone's gone, here's something new, and I've gone, oh, that looks good. I've never been the person that kind of looks to jump from job to job, because I've always been, actually, there's usually more opportunity where you are, and better the devil you know.
Yeah, and also, again, another wonderful byproduct of a bigger brand as well is that, there's usually way more properties, and if therefore you're happy to consider relocations as well, then really the job can take you anywhere and quite quickly as well. And you can end up finding yourself climbing the ranks maybe sometimes before you feel like you're ready to, but because the opportunity is just there.
Yeah. At Thistle, I went in as a brand standards manager, and then through various restructures and things, I ended up being the leadership development manager. And then we got a new CEO who wanted kind of development and operational people, but like in his immediate team. So he had this traditional exec team where you've got your CMO and your CFO and that kind of thing. But then he had like an operations team who we would work really closely with the C-suite and the exec team and like the regional GMs, but be delivering all kinds of operational projects. And then they were building and operating hotels out in Malaysia and Singapore. So we were out there a lot as well. So hospitality, I mean, I've worked all over the world. That was before I even went into cruise. Even in hotels, I've worked all over the world, which is really exciting when someone goes, do you want to work here? Why not?
Well, indeed. And especially when you're younger and probably less ties and all of that kind of thing, like it's almost a no-brainer.
Yeah. And it's for me, it's like, let's just go see what it's like. You've got the opportunity to go somewhere for a couple of weeks or for a month. And if you don't like it, well, what have you lost? Nothing. A bit of time. So, but I've never gone anywhere and thought, actually, there's only one place in my life I've ever gone and thought, I don't want to go back there. But nearly everywhere I've been, I've thought, this is super cool.
Right. Where's that?
Shanghai. Didn't like it.
Okay. I was going to say, we don't have to put that in. But it's,
I know, just personal preference. I didn't like it.
Yeah. But there's the same, we have this thing at the moment, actually, and I have no idea why. Maybe this is a byproduct of 5 years on cruise ships as well, but the world at the moment is going crazy for Ibiza. Like, the development there is incredible. There's hotels coming out left, right and centre. They can't cope actually with the quantity of development in terms of staffing it and things like that. And I'm just a bit meh about Ibiza.
I went to Ibiza in the late 80s, and then when it was proper Ibiza in the 90s, and I'm so tempted to go next year for a big birthday, which we'll just not talk about. But
30. You did, it must be 30.
I mean, you're right. It's amazing, but it's almost a kind of, what's the word you say? It's a parody of itself. Now there's all the big super clubs and all of it, and like I know a lot of people that go to Ibiza and the prices of everything and stuff. And then, like you said, I hadn't even considered the logistics of it all, like staffing. Because where do all those people then go in the winter when everything's shut?
Well, and that's the issue, right? And it's not to say that I'm, for anybody who's listening to this thinking, Phil doesn't know what he's talking about. I know I don't know what I'm talking about. especially when it comes, because this is personal choice at the end of the day, as you say. And there's just so many other places that I would prefer to go for a break. That's the only thing I have in my head. Nothing to do with super clubs or anything. Like, I just didn't feel the connection that everybody else in the world seems to feel to Ibiza.
I think I was lucky to go when it was originally kind of, like I say, in its heyday.
Its prime. Yeah. Well, it's reinventing itself, as a lot of the Balearic Islands are.
Yeah.
In fact, they're trying to shake this reputation that they've had, haven't they?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, Mallorca, I'm working for Barcelona, who's had their head office in Mallorca. I was in Mallorca all the time.
What a nightmare.
And I know, it's terrible, shocking. And then in cruise, obviously, everybody cruises out of Palma.
Yeah.
So again, I can't tell you how many times I've been to Mallorca, and it's a family holiday favourite as well. But we always kind of went away from the big touristy areas. So we weren't in Magaluf or Alcudia or all those kind of places. We would go to like Pienza and Port Soler and places like that that were a bit smaller and a bit more out of the way. But yeah, you see it all on the industry news about, you know, that whole not wanting the volume of tourism that they get. I don't know.
Yeah, no, indeed. No right or wrong way, I suppose, in the end. Your time with Thistle, was that the Value Centre era,
Yes.
we'll call it?
Oh, wow, yes, the Value Centre era. So the CEO at the time introduced this idea of value centres, and rather than having in a hotel where you have a GM and then you have a sales manager, a revenue manager, a finance manager, an F&B manager, a rooms division or an ops, and he would break everything up into chunks, and you had a manager that would manage everything for that chunk. So whether it was a group of floors, whether it was a set of conference, whether it was a number of outlets of F&B, and you would be responsible for everything: sales, revenue, costs, people.
Wow.
So it would almost make you a mini GM. So for people who thought that way, it was amazing. The development for those people were amazing, and we were heavily involved. In fact, at one point, my job title was Value Centre Group Operations Manager. I think that was right. Yeah, which was a difficult one to explain. It was just easier to go Group Operations Manager. But I basically had a number of those value centre managers working with me on their different projects and supporting them on either any development areas that they had or projects that they were trying to do or try to deliver. And some people were so successful. I mean, some people have done so well out of it and are now amazing GMs, amazing revenue managers. It gave people really well-rounded experience, but it was so jarring against that you have grown up to be a revenue manager. You have grown up to... And actually, you've spent a lot of your time and effort and experience learning your craft. And then someone says, oh, that's lovely that you know that, but can you know all these things around it? And for some people, it was like, actually, it's kind of cool to get good experience in how to run an F&B operation. And for other people, they're like, I didn't go into operations because I didn't want to. Or actually, I didn't go into revenue or finance because that's not my strength. My strength is people and guest service and managing, you know, banquets. And so it worked for some, it didn't for others. At some point, someone should do a Harvard Business Review study on it.
Yeah, I remember the ripple effect outwards into the industry at the time. I was working in recruitment at the time, and I had a couple of mates who were working within the organisation at that time. And there was one especially that I remember who said, I just don't know what they want. I don't understand it. But here's the thing, I guess, is that from the outside, and probably there was a lot of resistance internally as well, I would imagine, because it was a massive change.
It was a huge change. I got the role that I got because I was part of the team that managed that whole change program. And it was an enormous amount of training and development that came with it, which is where I came in.
Which is probably good.
Enormous amount of
interesting and
process change. It was fascinating to do. It really was. But it was also recognising that it was so different, and you had to be cognizant that it wasn't going to work for everyone. But on the other hand, it was successful in as much as, did those value centres make money? Yes, they did. Yeah. And I mean, like any group of hotels, not everybody was successful all the time, or not everyone was successful at the same time. But there was very little failure. And some of the amazing things that came out of it, the one I always remember, the Tower Hotel on that prime piece of land with that amazing view of the bridge had I think it was Europcar, or rent-a-car car parking spaces. And one of these VCGMs said, we should get rid of them and we should put down AstroTurf and we should have like pop-up bars and things. They've now been doing that for well over a decade. And every summer, but I think they have it almost year round now, they make an absolute killing. Hiring out pitches, F&B revenue, I think they do some of the F&B themselves. Someone else said, well, why don't we put another floor on the Starbucks that's there, which is one of the busiest Starbucks in the country. They did that. And so all of those things came from those value centres where this is what you're responsible for. How do you maximise the revenue that you get from that? And that was clever. Yeah. That was really clever, because it almost made people run things like their own business. And of course, in your own business, you are responsible for sales, marketing, cost control, finance, strategy, etc., as well as the operation. So it was really clever, and there was some real successes from it. And then in some places, maybe it didn't work so well, and it didn't work so well for some people.
Yeah.
But it was cool to be part of.
No doubt. And I suppose the other point in that is that that's sometimes you need the disruptors to come along and just think differently, right? Because I think if I remember rightly, the CEO's background was banking or something like that.
Banking with relationship managers. So everybody in the kind of res and sales space at more junior level, so middle management and supervision, kind of became relationship managers and managing the relationships with key clients, key agents, regular guests. And those, so this whole kind of relationship management piece underpinned it, and the systems and tech that went with it. And it really was about how do we then optimize the customer experience and drive as much revenue from the different groups of customers as well. And what are their needs, and how do we make sure that we tailor things to their needs? Yeah, but that all came from banking.
Yeah, and he must have been a great salesman.
Oh yeah,
because he would have to get that through the ownership as well. Right?
So visionary.
Yeah,
and so I've never worked for anyone like him in as much as he was. He could. I'm never one to come up with a vision, but if someone gives me this is what it's meant to look like, I'm quite good at thinking about what the building blocks are to get there and getting there. And he was able to paint such clear pictures that for me it was like, right, what's the roadmap? What do people need? How do we do this? What does that look like? What's all the communication? What's all the training? And it wasn't just me. There was a number of us involved at the time, but it was fascinating to me. What I learned so much, really did. And when he sort of said, I'd really like you specifically on, there's a group of you that I want on my team. And there was 3 of us. And yeah, that was because you also then had that kind of almost audience with the CEO, if that made sense. You had it direction. None of the messaging was filtered. So you were like, okay, that's where we're going. Then you were very clear about the vision and direction. I think the hard thing was then to translate that down to much, much bigger groups of people. And particularly in hotel operations where the day-to-day was still the same. But you need to manage it differently. That's hard.
Yeah, for sure. If people have been hired in a certain way, and then you completely change that way of working for everybody. That's a tough.
It was a mindset shift, completely culture shift. Definitely, we did huge roadshows. We hired out like Odeon cinemas all over the country and did these roadshows about what the mission, vision, and values were. We set up a whole internal Facebook page and had people posting all kinds of different. I mean, this was before Reels. This was before Insta. This was like that stuff didn't exist. Yeah. This was like internal Facebook pages. Post your pictures, and this was back in like I want to say like early teens. So yeah, over a decade ago. And so we hired out all Odeon cinemas and then did these huge road shows, and everybody came away with like goodie bags, and it was just like this energy that was generated around the country. And then particularly in London, where there was like that whole centric kind of thistle pot of hotels. And we'd just come off the back of the Olympics as well, so we had a really successful year the previous year. So it was how do we build on that success? And the whole thing was, we don't have the Olympics, but how do we just not sit there in 2013, 14 and go, yeah, well, we didn't have the Olympics. It's like, what do we actually do to try and drive revenue and sales now and deliver the best thing for the guests?
That period for me still blows my mind, because I remember thinking at the time when London got the bid, and the hotel pipeline in that time was incredible. Yeah. I think it was something like 9,000 bedrooms under development. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's incredible, but what happens after the Olympics? And yet, post-Olympics, you look at the pipeline of development, it's never been too far.
There's still thousands of rooms coming into London
constantly.
In the rest of this decade. There's still thousands of bedrooms either in production, like in construction, or in planning phase.
Yeah.
You speak to the Visit London guys and they're like, it's not slowing down.
No. So it was actually the best tourism video in the history of tourism videos.
Wasn't it just? Yeah.
Yeah. Probably all to do with the Queen jumping out of a helicopter.
As she did. God love her. God rest her soul.
Indeed. Yeah, bless her. Okay, so what happened next? Where did you head after that?
So yeah, interestingly then, I was approached by someone who I worked with in Thistle who said, yeah, we're looking for someone to come and run hotel operations on our cruise ships. And I was like, that's lovely, I've never been on a cruise.
Yeah.
And TUI, at the time was Thompson Holidays, said, that's fine, go on a cruise. And I was like, pardon? So they sent me and my family on a cruise.
I mean, that's a great way to potentially entice.
So next time we do a podcast, Phil, just so I'm clear, I have standards. So.
Okay, noted. I'll put the budget up next time.
But no, it was like, so I went on a cruise and obviously had to write a very detailed report about it. And it was interesting. It was quite a challenging cruise because there was some really bad weather. So my husband then learned that he really does not do cruises.
Right.
But my daughter and I had a great time. But no, so I wrote a report from a hotelier's perspective because obviously I didn't have any other perspective, and eventually going through a number of stages, and I got the job. And it was to run It was head of hotel operations on what was then the Thompson fleet, which became Meliora Cruises, part of the TUI. It was always part of TUI, but they did a whole rebrand.
Yep.
And doing that, I was involved in 3 ship launches across the 3 and a bit years. So they just launched Discovery, and they had some of the older ships in the fleet. And then I was part of launching Discovery 2, Explorer, and Explorer 2. At one point, I had 7 ships, so it's 7 floating hotels. At any given point, like 10,000 guests sailing. And in winter, you'd have ships in the Caribbean and ships in Asia. So my day, there was no day. It was literally, I would do Teams calls, and it wasn't even Teams then, because that was very a COVID thing. It was WhatsApp.
Skype.
WhatsApp and Skype, yeah.
God.
WhatsApp tended to work best. I don't want to pick up my phone to show. WhatsApp tended to work best.
Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that way, because if you had the slightest bit of signal, you can use WhatsApp, and then they could also tap into the ship's Wi-Fi. So yeah, I mean, literally running at 7 big hotels on WhatsApp, and then traveling all over the world. So again, everywhere. I did the whole setup when we set up Dubai at Port Rashid. So I did a lot of the setup for that, and then I went out for the first cruise, and yeah, it was fun and games. And it's just roll your sleeves up and get stuck in at one point, and it was like huffing bags around in 40-degree heat on the quayside and stuff like that. I did all the setup for Malaysia and Singapore, primarily because I'd worked out there before, so I kind of knew the lay of the land. So I went out there with the agents and with some of the guys from the airline, because of course you had to tie in with the airline. And then Caribbean was a well-established operation, but still going out there and meeting the agents and making sure that everything was okay. So I was out in the Caribbean probably about once every winter. And then there were all the dry docks. So we mainly dry docked in Cadiz in south of Spain. So it's like all the ship refurbs and maintenance and the whole, when we rebranded whole ships. So they were buying ships off Royal Caribbean, stripping them all down and starting again. That was incredible. And that was done in a matter of weeks.
Right. Yeah.
It was nuts.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
It shows you, I mean, I think you might be actually the first person that I've had on the show or had a conversation with who's done ships that way around. Normally it's somewhere you start and then you go on to somewhere else. It's not that often that people have a career on land. Yeah. Although there's no reason why that should be, because at the end of the day, I think the cruise market is again in such a buoyant upward trajectory.
When I worked for I think the final full year that I worked for cruise, bearing in mind how big like TUI UK and Ireland are, those 7 my 7 floating hotels contributed 40% of TUI UK and Ireland's EBITDA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was like, we were all standing there going, okay, all these thousands of resorts and And don't get me wrong, that came, the revenue generated from the airlines with the fly cruise and all of that. It wasn't just, but when you kind of hear that this is the money that's generated by cruise, you're like, that's why we work so hard. That explains it.
That's why you can take a ship from Royal Caribbean and just strip it back and start again.
Yeah. It was really hard work. Like, I think it's probably the hardest, like, physically and hours and just general, because obviously all the travel as well. It was probably one of the most like grueling jobs I've ever done, but I loved it. I think if Frank had gone into cruise earlier, who knows? But I came to it a lot later, and I enjoyed it. But it got to the point where my husband was like, "Okay, I'm a single parent. Please come home." And just there, but for I left cruise in summer 19, and of course COVID struck in January 2020.
I mean, that's not a bad time to leave.
I know,
given what happened.
I know. So it was just. It wasn't planned like that, obviously, and no one had any idea what was coming. But I'd done 3 years, I'd done the 3 ship launches, and I thought, right, now's the time. I know there's no more new ships coming. The fleet's in a good place to run. I'm going to step back and get something more UK-based, and that's what I did.
Yeah, so what happened next?
So I got a job in the UK. It's the first time in a long time that I'd gone and looked for a job, because as a family, we decided, right, you've basically been out of the country 3 years. I used to spend 50% of my time probably out of the country. If I wasn't on board, I was in ports and checking things out and that sort of thing. My daughter was getting older. So I actively looked for a job. And had my CV out there with different agents and stuff, and I was approached for a COO role with a charity called Revitalise, which was holidays for disabled people. So they had 3 holiday centres in the UK, and they had another one at the time that they were building and opening, and that they also wanted someone who had rebrand and opening experience. And basically, these were holiday centres, so they were in nice holiday locations. They had obviously bedrooms, restaurants, bars, entertainment. One even had a hydro pool, but everything was geared up for people with disabilities. So all the rooms were accessible, all the bathrooms were accessible, profiling beds. There were certain rooms where you could have like oxygen connected. I had teams of carers, nurses, as well as room attendants, chefs, waiters and waitresses, receptionists.
Right.
So it was like hospitality, but with healthcare on top, which was like a whole new thing for me. I had a bit of exposure to it, having medics on board, and said I had a little bit of knowledge, but nothing compared to essentially what you were running was like a cross between a small holiday resort and a care home. And all of our guests were either had some form of disability or were recovering from something, or we had certain weeks where we would actually have breaks that were for specific needs. So, for example, breaks for people with Alzheimer's, or breaks for younger people with special needs. And it was all quite specialist, but the whole premise was everybody deserves a holiday. And as soon as I learned about this, I was like, oh my God, yes. Doesn't matter what challenges you have, what disability you might have, what illness you might have, what you might be recovering from. Everybody wants a holiday, but not just for the individual person, but also for the personal people that care for that person. They also need a holiday. So that gave people choice in that you and your loved one or the person you care for can come on holiday together, but we take the care element away from you. So if you're husband and wife, and just like say husband cares for the wife, you're not the care anymore. You go back to being the husband because you don't have to do the care. You can just spend the time with your loved one and enjoy food and drink and sightseeing and entertainment, and you don't have to worry about the care because we do that because we've got the carers and the nurses.
Yeah.
Or you could leave your loved one or the person you care for in our care, and you can go on holiday and have a break, or you can go maybe away with other members of your family or go with your friends, and know that the person that you love and the person that you're responsible for and care for is properly looked after, and you're not just putting them in respite care in a care home, although there's nothing against that, but they're getting a holiday too. It's not just you're going to a different place to be cared for. You're going to a different place to be cared for, but where you're going to have restaurant-style quality food, entertainment. You can go on sightseeing tours. You can go down to the beach. So for me, that was like, I so want to do this.
Yeah.
You can probably tell I'm talking about it.
Your energy levels have gone through the roof.
Yeah, I was just like, this sounds like the most amazing thing. And so I so wanted to do it. So, man, the learning curve for that was unreal. I thought the learning curve for cruise was hard. Learning all about healthcare and regulations and the Care Quality Commission and everything around that was bananas. And just as I felt I'd kind of got to the point where I knew what was going on, COVID.
Yeah, there's that. And COVID.
Yeah. So at first I went into a blinding panic because we were the first people to really lose all our business because every single person that stayed with us was vulnerable. So they shielded. So in January, before kind of March, where mid to late February, where the whole of hospitality got smashed, from sort of late January, we started to get mass cancellations. And by early February, we'd gone from, on average, 94% occupancy across all 3 sites to nothing. Nothing on the books. And we were a charity as well. So we weren't answerable to shareholders, but we were answerable to trustees. And obviously, there's only so many coffers in the pot. And it was like, how are we going to survive this? So obviously, we had a lot of contacts with the NHS. So we reached out to all the NHS commissioning services and were like, look, we've got these places. They've got proper medical rooms, beds. I've got qualified carers, qualified nurses. I've got accessible transport. Surely we can help. Your hospitals are inundated. Unfortunately, they said, yes, you can help, which was great. But they sent us people when they weren't testing people that they sent out of hospital.
Right.
So yeah, I went from nice holidays and cruise ships and hotels to dealing with people who had a lot of special needs and then people who were dying.
Yeah, gosh.
And it was really scary.
Harrowing.
I worked from March to, I think, probably around when everything started to open up in kind of June, July time, 2020, I barely had a day off. And it was just grueling. It was, and because the roads, I mean, the only fun was that the roads were empty. It was great fun on the M40 on a Friday night when it was empty. So you realise you shouldn't go this fast. The NHS are under pressure. You don't need to add to it. But yeah, it was extremely scary, and no one knew what was going on. The legislation changed on a daily, if not a weekly basis. Masks, no masks, do this, don't do that, you can't do this, quarantines this, no, it's that. It was hideous.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where eventually it kind of settled down because they were testing people and we'd got into a routine and we were managing the beds and it was keeping the charity afloat. And we'd furloughed all the reservations team and we were managing everything like on property. All the central team were either working from home or furloughed. And then we were offered the opportunity to properly take COVID positive patients and have like COVID positive wings. So these were people who weren't actively showing signs of COVID, but they were testing positive. And at that point I was like, enough. I'm a hotelier. I'm not a clinician. I'm scared. The responsibility sits on me. I had the responsibility as the nominated individual, corporate manslaughter. I was like, I'm done. So I agreed with the trustees that I wasn't the best person to run it. They needed a clinician and that's what they got.
Yeah.
And I stepped away. So in the middle of COVID, at the end of 2020, with no job, nothing, I walked away.
Right. But the journey in a very short space of time there from being in a place which, the way you were talking about it, as you said, energized you because obviously it was almost like nearly this higher purpose feeling.
It really was this kind of altruistic, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then literally COVID just came and took it all out from under everybody in every business. And we weren't at the coalface. I mean, I can't even begin. Well, I knew speaking because we spoke regularly to the hospitals and the nurses and people and the paramedics and that. And so I knew what they were going through. But we were kind of a few kind of rungs down or a few further back from the frontline infantry and what we saw. Yeah. So
anyway.
we weren't geared up for it.
No, indeed. And but I mean, like, I suppose everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe trying to figure out exactly why COVID happened. Maybe we don't yet know the full reason for that. But actually, in saying that, there are lots and lots of cases in that time as well where, a reset button was hit in some way for a lot of people around maybe perspective on life, what really is important to them.
Yep.
All of the things that you maybe lose sight of when you're in the midst of busyness and you're just cracking on, which I think the world was in that let's just crack on state beforehand. And so the opportunity in a moment like that, as horrific as it was for some, for others has also been an opportunity to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And it sounds even in a weird way in your own circumstance, that's the purpose that it served for you as well, in terms of you had to get out in the end because it wasn't giving you the energy that it was beforehand, a different skill set perhaps that you just didn't feel comfortable offering to that. So the chance to reset, the difference here being is that let's reset when the world is shut down and there's nothing to do.
It's like, okay, so I've just walked out of a job and I have no job to go to and there are no jobs. Amazing. Well done, Joe. Good call.
Good strategy.
Yeah, brilliant.
A challenge, yeah.
Yeah, why not? So I had Christmas, so that was nice, at home with not seeing anyone. And then it kind of got to the beginning of 2021. I thought, right, what do I really want to do? And what do I like doing? And what I like doing is training and process and making things better. Like something helped me and being able to like support and help. And I started speaking to various people in the industry. A lot of people were working from home or on furlough. And the people that were working, everyone was like, oh God, Joe, I'm really sorry I don't have any jobs. And then but I do have a project. And I was like, okay. And then I spoke to someone I knew quite well. And he was like, set up on your own. Even if you just do it for now. Even if you just do it for now and do the odd project, just keep the lights on. And I thought, right, I can't sit at home. I can't afford to sit at home. So I'm going to do whatever I can to keep the lights on. So strange enough, it's really not that hard to start a company.
It's really not.
It's really not.
The most difficult thing to do in starting a company.
Get the bank account.
The name.
Actually, that's not bad. It's true. The name.
To this day, it's when I started a recruitment company in 2015. Get that right, Phil. I think the name took us the longest to figure out. Everything else, we were like, we could start tomorrow, but what do we call this thing?
Yeah.
That you have to create a brand around.
Yeah. I didn't find that bit that hard, really. I just started looking up what I wanted to do and then different meanings of things and what it would be in different like languages and Googling synonyms and all of that good stuff. And then this word kept coming up, Meliora. And I thought, actually, that does what it says on the tin, the pursuit of the better. How would I help someone make things better? How would I help someone get things done? And just started taking on projects. And I luckily, because I'd worked in the charity sector, I had some contacts there. So I did some work for Mind. Mad stuff. Like I retendered all their IT and their phone systems for one of the Mind branches. But I thought, well, I know how to run a tender. I've done a million laundry tenders and, F&B tenders, and thought, how different can it be? So just applied the same principles, worked with someone who knew about IT, because let's be honest, couldn't take responsibility for that, and ended up getting them a much better deal. Ended up getting a much better deal on their mobile phones. Well, that was an easy one. It's like, well, we're paying too much money. How do we change this? How do we get better kit for less money? And I just started doing different projects, and then before I knew it, it was different projects within other companies and within hospitality. So I've done a lot of work over the last few years with Champneys, the spas, all around the country. So I know the team there quite well. They're great to work with. And just doing different things. I did 2 different projects in the build-to-rent sector, looking at their customer services and how they handle... It's not dissimilar to reservations, how they handle inquiries coming in for rental properties. The paperwork at the end is different, but the whole principle of see space, book space, rent space, pay for space, and then the servicing around it is all the same. Maintenance, concierge, all of that. So there's a lot of applicable... The great thing about hospitality is there's a lot of skills that you can apply to similar businesses, that 75% of your skill set works, and then you just have to learn quick on the rest of it.
Yeah, but hospitality teaches you that as well, though, right?
Doesn't it just?
Yeah. I mean, just even look in your own journey up until that point, it is almost like an all roads lead here kind of story, isn't it, really? Because the amount of times that you said that you've gone into something whereby, your learning curve was steep, even when you join a grad program, the learning curve is steep, right? Because you're taking what you have learnt in a classroom, but now you have to apply these things into the, for want of a better phrase, the real world. Yeah. And that's a very different environment completely. That is a learning experience in itself. So actually, really we probably don't talk about this enough as a wonderful byproduct of this incredible industry, is that your ability to pivot quickly, to be able to respond to drama and come up with solution, is just ingrained. Yeah. And then so apply that into a project. Usually somebody's going to recruit you into a project role because something's not working, something needs bettering, something needs to be changed. All of those things, or something, you have to open something or whatever. So these are all skill sets which I think it certainly feels like from our brief time together that you've just been exposed to all the way through your career.
I'm also the kind of person that just thinks, I'm not scared of learning something. So if I don't know something, it actually, maybe it's just an undying curiosity, but I'm actually, but that sounds interesting, so I'll go and learn about that. And because I'm an anorak, I'll Google everything, I'll read every article, I'll listen to podcasts, I'll be like, how do I know more about that thing? Because I'm either super interested in it or it's really going to benefit me, or both. Yeah. So and if I'm honest, I've not really looked back.
I mean, you highlighted a couple of projects that you've already worked on, notwithstanding where we're sat today as well. And I suppose maybe the difference with the other houses is that you've been involved for quite a long time now.
Yeah, in different guises.
Will be going forward for the.
Hope so. If they still have me.
Indeed, yeah. Well, let's see what happens.
Naomi, if you're listening.
It was fine until you went on that podcast, and then that was the end of that. But yeah, it sounds like the great thing about, I suppose, what you're doing now is that to a certain extent you get to choose what you get involved with. Yes. It has to have something that is interesting and a point of difference, perhaps some learning for yourself in that process. But actually, that's really the kind of the dream, isn't it? Like for anybody in any role, is to have the opportunity to learn something new, the opportunity to be able to impart the fullness of yourself into that. And as long as those two things continue to align, then that's the goal. Yeah, definitely. I think when it's, I joined this organisation to support with implementing HR systems, payroll and online learning and all of that good stuff, and then gradually just got involved in different operational projects. And then it was kind of like, will you help support with the Covent Garden project? Would you like to be involved in one of the most exciting hotel residence club openings in London, in that part of for a hotelier? Oh my God, yes. Yeah. Yes, please. I'm not even running that one past the husband. It's happening. I got so excited on New Year's Eve because we were watching the fireworks and the drone came over, and as the drone came over, like the camera, our crane, the crane at Covent Garden was silhouetted just before I went to the fireworks. And I'm like, that's my crane. And my husband's like, really? I'm like, okay, well, it's not my crane, but it's the crane on the project that I'm working on. And it was just a moment. But yeah, it for me, having seen something from when it was, we've bought this, to when we open the doors in a few months' time, I can see that's going to be like, it's not just that blood, sweat and tears. It's like I've been part of that,
And so many amazing people have worked on this project, and it's a real privilege to think I've had a little bit of involvement along the way. There's bits of me in those decisions, and that's really nice, and it's going to be amazing when it opens. So yeah, I'm around for that, definitely. But I really, it's good to be involved in the big stuff, but I also really like coaching individual people and seeing people grow and develop, and I get to do a bit of that here. And then I have some private coaching clients that I work with, and not all just in hospitality. So that's really rewarding as well when you hear, oh, I got the job, or this was what the strategy we agreed on to deal with the situation and it worked, and those types of things. They're just as rewarding as the big stuff where you go, wow, my name's part of the pot on that. So yeah.
Yeah, superb. Yeah, I've only really got one more question for you,
oh, God.
To be honest, which all just centres around stories. Have you got any funny stories from your career that you can share with us so far that are repeatable on a public forum?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of like funny stories and mad stuff that's happened. So there was one time when I double booked the entire hotel. And it wasn't a particularly big hotel.
That's a hell of an effort.
It was 49 bedrooms. It was the smallest Marriott in the world at the time. And I was the rooms division manager, rooms operations manager. And I'd misread an American date. So I'd read it in British and it was an American format. So I'd booked basically like an exclusive use, nearly all the bedrooms out on this particular Saturday. And it was the wrong Saturday. I think I'd got it was like something like the 6th of July and I'd booked it for like the 7th of June, whichever way, I can't quite remember it now. But it was to do with the American date formatting. And when it all came to light, we had 2 weddings in the hotel, was booked fully. Wow. And then we had this huge group of rooms that would also believe that they booked pretty much the entire bedroom quantity. And yeah, there was some interesting conversations trying to work out were there any brides who'd be willing to, are all your guests going to stay?
Do you need to get married today?
Do you need all those rooms? It wasn't the wedding, it was the wedding guests that was the challenge.
Right.
And we were trying to work out, do we pay for rooms down the road? Because we had literally had a travel-in down the road and they were like, I'm not putting my guests in a travel-in. I was like, right, okay. And then as it was, because we couldn't get hold of the other booker, he just kept I think because we were in America, different time zones and stuff. And this is going back to the early noughties. So this isn't even when there was a lot happening on the internet. There was no social media. There was no WhatsApping someone. This was all done on fax.
Oh my God,
so it was how do we deal with this? And we were trying to establish, did they need all those rooms and would they be willing to house half the bit? And then they suddenly sent through a cancellation. And I've never been so relieved to lose so much rooms revenue in my entire life.
Yeah.
So that one was, that was the crazy one. That's one that always stands out. There was the time when I was...
You're on a roll now.
Yeah, there was the time when I was DM on a Sunday morning in a golf resort and it was Christmas. And it was this Sunday morning, late December, around Christmas time. And I got a call from the restaurant manager going, can you come in? We've got a bit... And he couldn't quite explain it. It was he over the radio and I was like, what's going on? And I'm thinking, well, it's Sunday morning breakfast. It's going to be a bum fight, but do you really need is it that bad that you need the duty manager to start coming and clearing tables? It wasn't at the point where I thought it would be that busy. It was probably about 8:30, 9. And I walked in and I was looking around thinking, well, everything looks fine. And he went, oh, come here. And there was this big bay window and the mist was just lifting and it overlooked the 18th green where we assumed some drunk people the night before had put all of the rattan reindeers that were out the front and put them on the 18th green in various positions, fornicating on the 18th green right in front of Sunday morning family breakfast. Yeah. Luckily, as the mist lifted and this became apparent and everyone's frantically radioing the greenkeepers to get them moved, most of the people found it funny, but the people who didn't, I then had to deal with the complaints. I'm how do you deal with that? I'm really sorry that they were reindeer fornicating on the green while you used to eat your breakfast. What do you want me to say?
Indeed. They're not real.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the Christmas decorations we were hoping for.
No.
So that was a one. Yeah, I think those 2 really stand out in my mind because I was quite young as well then. I was quite junior, suddenly going, oh gosh, I've got to deal with this. How does one deal with this?
Yeah, but I think these stories are kind of an inevitable part of especially as you say, the young. You hope that you make less mistakes as you climb the ranks, but you still make mistakes. And stuff happens with the best planning in the world. There's just stuff that just happens. These are the moments that actually, again, they teach you. It's not necessarily the mistake itself that's the issue. It's how you respond to it, right? Yeah. And what happens next is actually where the real win is. It's not a complete hotel double booking scenario, but I have done a similar thing in a much smaller place. I was on a student exchange in America, a little 19-bedroom motel, and we didn't even have a computer system to make bookings. We had paper on the wall. Yeah. When that month was done, you moved that month off, and a new month got papered on, and that you're penciling in. And somebody had taken a booking when I wasn't on. That was a lady who specifically requested the ground floor, and they'd actually penciled on the booking must have a ground floor. So they put them in the ground floor room. Then later when I was on shift and I was trying to accommodate a bigger booking to make sure that we got everybody I thought, I can just move that lady into that room there. Of course, it wasn't a ground floor room. And when that lady arrived, there was all hell to pay. And as a 19-year-old, I remember thinking to myself, one, I'd never really dealt with anybody who was that angry. But two, it was kind of almost a realization, well, I have made the mistake. I'm just going to own that. It's not the hotel's error. That's 100% my error. There's nothing I can do about it other than, giving you support up the stairs to get to the room. And she eventually calmed down, and I just went over to the little local supermarket and bought her a bunch of flowers just to apologise and took them up. And it brought her alive again. And nothing else was said about the whole experience. She didn't make any meaningful complaint about it and all of that. And I just remember thinking, we do have the power to rectify stuff. To
turn things around.
Yeah, to make people's negative experience turn into a positive one. And I didn't know then how much enjoyment I took out of doing those kinds of things. It was a really, really interesting eye-opener. Yeah,
I've never understood people who don't want to deal with complaints. So don't get me wrong, no one likes getting shouted at or people being rude to you. But I actually take, particularly when I know that we're in the wrong, like we've messed up. When I say we, like the operation or whomever or someone or myself have messed up, to do everything you can to try and fix it. Because it's then, at least then, if nothing else, that person will realise that you've tried. There was a family here a couple of years ago, and they were asking to speak to the manager. I was on site. I went to speak to them. They'd had a culmination of lots of little issues, but they were staying for a long time, and they were a bit like, this is like our first few days. If this is going to happen for the next couple of months, we can't have this. So took a bit of ownership from their booking, sorted out some of their issues, made sure they were okay, kept checking in with them, because then they were with us for a couple of months. So, and I just so happened they were the type of people that like to hang around the lobby and talk and that type of thing. Kept checking in with them. They come every single year now.
Right.
And every single year. So this year they've been 3 times now, and I always see them. And now it's different. I see them. It's hugs and kisses. How are you? How's the family at home? What's going on? Tell me about your life. My daughter was in on a weekend on leisure for her birthday. She wanted to stay here and go to the theatre. That's what we did. And we happened to bump into this guest. So now this guest asked me about my daughter, and it's like that's come from quite a serious complaint where we nearly lost a 2-month booking to now they've stayed with us 3 times, and it's always big chunks of time that they stay with us. Yeah. And it's knowing that you've got the power to actually do that. Everyone can make a mistake. How do you turn it around? And when you do, you can quite often get something better out of it.
Totally. Yeah. And, notwithstanding, your ego feels a little bit better because you've managed to do something positive. Yeah. We don't ever talk about that. There's actually science behind that as to why, the feeling of helping somebody else do something or turning their day around actually has a wonderful internal...
I love that saying, if you get the chance to make someone's day, take it. I just love that. Whether it's a positive piece of feedback, whether it's helping someone, whether it's checking in on someone, whether it's just saying to a lady on the bus the other day, I was standing at the bus stop, it was one of those boiling hot days, and I had a summer dress on. I'm just standing there and I kind of glanced up and the lady at the bus pointed at me, pointed up and down, and she gave me a thumbs up and she mouthed at me, nice dress.
Nice.
I was flying. I was like, and so I gave her back, the heart hands. And I was like, what a lovely thing to do. And she probably thought it was quite nice to do that. And I was like, little stuff like that. And then big stuff like giving someone some coaching and development and helping them grow, or helping a guest who's got a problem and then you can then fix it for them or help them if they're in a time of need. It makes things better. And in hospitality, you get a lot of chance to make people's day.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you take it? A lot of what we deal with is positive. Primarily, we deal with people's leisure time. Yeah, you might be away for work, but that point where you come back to your hotel room or you come for dinner in the restaurant or you come for a drink in the bar or you're chilling out in the club, that's your leisure time. And we have the chance to make or break that and make it a good experience for someone. Why wouldn't you?
No, indeed.
No one does not enjoy having a good time, and no one does not enjoy positive experiences. So yeah, I'm all about, if you can make it positive, do it.
Yep, totally. That strikes me as a wonderful place to wrap this up. What a wonderfully positive way to finish it off. But no, thank you so much for sharing your story. What a story. You've got a lot more to come.
Yeah. You might do this again in a decade and see where we're both at.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Nice one. Thanks so much, Jo.
Thanks.
Take care.
And there we have it. Jo's story in full flow, dropping wisdom, warmth, and the occasional reindeer story. What more could you want? A huge thank you to her for her time in hospitality. We will, of course, be back next week with another awesome journey from hospitality, so have yourselves a cracking week, and I'll see you then.